Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to Street Rust. It's about a week after I got the head taken off of the Mustang, 2000 Mustang V6 3.8 liter. Had to stop work on the Galaxy, which is on the other side here. Had to pull the LTD out of the garage because this is my son's everyday driver and we need to get it back on the road. I do want to mention too, this Mustang, it's got 184,000 miles on it. So it has, we've got our money's worth out of it. And we just got to keep it going a little longer till May, till he graduates from college. So why did it take so long to get back on this? Well, number one, it's a parts issue and it's a money issue. We were able to, for about a third of the cost, $100 versus $300, we were able to order these products off Rock Auto. We just had to wait a little bit. I priced down some of the local auto stores where I could go pick it up or they could deliver it in a day or two, but the price tag was just so much higher. It was really amazing. So what we've got, of course, I've got the Haynes manual that I did purchase on this vehicle a while back. Gave me all my specs and how-tos and all that. We've got intake gaskets, the lower intake gasket. We've got both sides. Those are good to go. Those are Apex, which is out of California. And we've got the head gasket, Felpro. We've got the upper intake, the plenum intake gasket. Went ahead and got new connectors for the fuel injectors, because most of those, because of the length of time they've been in there and the heat abuse, when you try to hit the clips, they just break off. So I'm going to go ahead and wire those in. We've got a new set of head bolts. On older vehicles, I get away with it. On newer vehicles, aluminum heads. These are one and done head bolts. Those were cheap. They're about 10 bucks. Not too bad. We are going to be using some Permatex thread sealant on the lower short head bolts. For the upper longer head bolts, we'll just lightly, as the manual says, oil those with 10W30. Got all the old head bolts here. Got the head that we got from the salvage yard. That was a bear. I'm going to tell you, those lower four head bolts at the salvage yard, they've got those vehicles setting up on rims that are higher to the ground, higher up off the ground, and once again had to use my torque wrench to bust those loose on that lower side. I had to get up into the engine compartment at 54 years old like a monkey, and so I could get lined up on those. Then I started stripping one of them. Then I was panicking. The place was shutting down in like 30 minutes. Had spent 2 hours in there. I was down to the last head bolt. Finally, I got it on there. I got it tapped on with a hammer and just kept a straight hold on it, and it finally busted loose. So glory days there, I guarantee it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start cleaning. We're going to get this head cleaned up. We're going to get everything cleaned up in the engine compartment on the engine. I do want to share with you too some specs that I wrote down. There's a bunch of specs, and why they would put specs in inch pounds so that I have to convert it to foot pounds, I have no idea. I don't personally have a torque wrench that does inch pounds, not to my knowledge. I'll have to look at my small one. But I'll show you this real quick, and then I'll show you the engine compartment. But what we got here is I've got all the specs written down. Get that focused a little better. We'll zoom in on that. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. Okay, we'll be talking about that. It's kind of crazy how you do this. The heads, you got to go 3 steps, 15, 30, 37 foot-pounds. Then step 4, it gets real crazy. You got to individually do it. Now you loosen it 2 to 3 turns, and then the long bolt, you take it back to 33. The short bolts back to 18 foot-pounds. Then step 6 is you tighten that specific bolt an extra 180 degrees. You do that individually after step 4. Then the lower intake, the rocker arm fulcrum bolts, which I call the lifter bolts. We got to take care of all that. So where we're at now, let me get you in over here. This is where we left off right here. we have got to get all of this cleaned up in here. See if we can zoom in a little bit on that. We got to get all this cleaned up, no doubt about it. We've got to get it cleaned up where there was some, I cleaned out a lot of the bay area here where the antifreeze got in here. I cleaned out the pistons. We got to chase all these holes. We got to chase every hole and every bolt with threaders and make sure that we're all good there. So that's what we're going to get on. I'll get this camera set up and we will get rocking. All right, here we go. Down and dirty. On the ground, down and dirty. You do what you got to do. Just want to go over a little bit here of, we'll be pretty gentle with this aluminum head. I'm not too worried about the outside here, the exhaust and all that, but definitely when I get to the surface of the, where it bolts into the intake, and obviously on the bottom where it mates with the cylinder head, I'm going to be very gentle with that. The only metal I use on the outside will be a metal brush. Other than that, nylon toothbrush, scratch pad. I will use this for the ports, try to get some of those out. So we're just going to work on this a little bit. I'm just hitting it. I'm using some card cleaner. I'm just hitting it and hitting it. That's all I'm doing. You can see that works pretty doggone good. It's just going to take a little time. So let's get on it. Just going to be messy, that's all there is to it. That's looking pretty good. I'll take a Scotch-Brite on top here where it mates up with the valve cover. I don't want to get real aggressive on that. Cleans up very nice, very easily. I did go ahead and cover everything here because I don't want to get a bunch of unnecessary dirt in there. Getting a little better. It's just what you got to do. You do what you got to do. I'm going to pray a little break on there. Get some of this cleaned up a little better. Not looking bad at all. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm not too worried about it. Other, just being clean. I like dealing with a clean piece a clean part when I'm putting it on the vehicle. And of course, the mating surfaces for the intake and the block have to be very clean and oil free, and we'll go over that in a minute. So basically, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to do that with the rest of this, and I may come back when I'm working on the bottom of it just to show you how gently I'm working with that where it mates to the block. Well, you always run into problems. It never fails. So here's the deal on the head. The ports on the head were just really nasty, built up and everything. So I've got them soaking in gas, right now. I poured some gas down the ports. I do see that one of the intake valves is leaking a little bit, which pretty much mandates that I pull it out real quick, do a little hand lapping on it, and get it back in and test it. So while that's soaking, we're going to go ahead and start working on getting this cleaned up here on the engine. So let's get that intake gasket off and see what we're going to do. Now there is an orientation to these gaskets, especially the water jacket right here. You see that it's on the water jacket on the intake gasket, it's blocked in the rear. That's going to cause water to go forward. But if you remember on the head gasket, which we have right here, and I can go ahead and take that off. On the head gasket, you can see that these passages are open in the rear and these are closed, with the exception of that little spot, just like a little spot right here in the front. That all has to do with keeping airflow going through that block and through that head. We'll get rid of this. Nasty, nasty, dirty. So let's see if we can get this off. Now, this does have little I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. Let's get this off without hurting it. We're going to go ahead and we need to take these gaskets off too. These front and rear gaskets. And I want to leave that sit right there. Oh, they used some RTV on there. That's good that they did that. We'll be doing that. Okay. You can see that this intake gasket, they have some little pegs on there. It's kind of hard to do it wrong. They also, for the front and rear seals for the intake, the lower intake, they did put some RTV in here, which is a great thing. They needed to do that. Make sure you saw that on camera here. Here are the pegs for the intake gasket. This is the front seal for the intake, and they have used RTV at that weak point. Okay, so from here it's just a matter of cleaning, and I'm going to get a vacuum in here first. And clean up this. Then I'll get it down in here. I've got to get any wet spots cleaned up. I've got to chase all these threads in here. I'll go ahead and get this cleaned up. I'll get the tap and die set out, and we'll go over that for our next step. Thanks. Alright, so here's the head. Done a lot of cleaning on it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Car's got 184,000 miles on it, like I said. Here's what I want to show you though. What I did, because these ports were so dirty, I put it like this. I'm not done cleaning this yet. We'll go over that. I have cleaned the surface where it mates up to the intake and everything. Nothing metal on here. You can't get aggressive on aluminum. So I filled these up with gas, and I noticed that there was a small leak right here. Okay, it was just a small leak, but nonetheless it's a leak. All the others sealed pretty good. So what I did is I went ahead and these I don't know if you've watched any of my Ford 302 1968 Galaxy videos, but basically you compress these springs. They got two little keepers in here. That's how it comes apart. It's pretty standard. But here's how cruddy this valve is. I want to make sure y'all get to see that good. It's just pretty nasty. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this valve cleaned up, and then I'll come back on, and we're gonna use a hand lapper and some very non-aggressive lapping here with this compound, and try to get that sealed up. Okay. Okay, you can see that I've cleaned up a little bit of this right here in this chamber and everything. The valve. I did get the valve out, cleaned it up a little bit. Looks like it's in real good shape. One thing I do like to do, and I've got some oil around here somewhere, put a little oil on this valve shaft. Just to make sure I don't have any, I don't want to scuff things up in there. Looks to be in pretty good shape. So that goes down there. Now, the reason I have these blocks of wood here is just to lift this up so it has enough room to go down through there. So, hand lapper, and this is your valve grinding compound. All I'm going to do, and this, I got to tell you, I think it was, everything looks so great here. I think it was just a matter of there was so much carbon built up in there. I had hit the tops of the valves with a rubber mallet just to break them loose. Probably had some crud in there, but just to make sure, I'm just going to do a real light, just a real light lap on here. Just to make sure that we don't have any problems. So that slides down in there. Okay. Pretty simple. Definitely don't want to use a drill on the other side with this because it's aluminum head. So here we go. You'll hear a grinding sound as it wears in. That sound, lift it up, turn it, that sound will get lighter. Like it is now. A couple more. That's absolutely all I'm going to do. And what you can see, see if we can get this cleaned up a little bit. Nice paper towel. That just cleaned up the edges here, and it cleaned up the edges there, so we get a good seal. Okay? So while we're at it and while we're here, let's talk about cleaning the surface here. That took all of 5 minutes, to get that cleaned up. It looks real good in there. So make sure we're still good on the video. Okay. All right. So what I'm not doing, you gotta do this by hand. I might get a little bit of the wire brush inside the chamber here where I'm not messing with the mating surface, but really all this has to be done by hand. I'll use either brake cleaner or a carb cleaner. I'm about out of carb cleaner, and I'm using a Scotch-Brite is all I'm using. I just get this thing going, and you can see how quickly it cleans all this up. And that's all you do. I mean, I'm going over this whole thing like this. We'll do a little bit more here to just to keep you going here. Of course, this will all be cleaned off, and I'll use acetone or alcohol or just carb brake cleaner to clean all this off before I put it together. But I mean, for aluminum heads, it's pretty much that simple. You can't feel anything on there. And I'm not going to get crazy on any one area here. I'm just going to get her smoothed out. Okay, so what I'm going to finish up tonight, it's about 11 o'clock at night, and I need to get some sleep. Got to be refreshed for church in the morning. But I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning this up. Kind of show you what I've done over here. You can see, if we can get focused on that. you can see that I have got this side of the head clean. Of course, I'm constantly vacuuming, trying to keep stuff out of this bay. So pretty much get the head back together, get this cleaned, get this surface cleaned here. I blew all the air out of the bolt holes. I do have to chase everything still with a tap. Everything gets tapped out. And try to get a little bit of that done tonight, and then we will actually get into installing the head, installing the exhaust manifold, the lower intake, the fuel rail. I did forget to mention earlier as well, I ordered some new O-rings for the fuel injectors. We'll be cleaning those up and putting them on, get everything back together tomorrow and get this thing running. We'll see you tomorrow.